I believe he has 2 classes. One is on the history side, and he does provide a lot of material. So he goes into this, and this is in detail what happened. How did we end up in a day where the Constitution is not regarded any longer? How did that happen? Well, I believe now things are starting to change, but I have to outline what happened in the first place so people can see there was a problem and be able to identify it. So here he says, now this is another interesting insight that he continues to say. In refuting the court's holding that Congress has absolute unlimited power over territories incorporated into the United States by treaty or war, Justice Harlan then concludes his epic dissent by calling into question the court's use of the term incorporation. He declared, this is critical, he declared, I am constrained to say that this idea of incorporation has some occult meaning which my mind does not apprehend. It is enveloped in some mystery which I am unable to ravel. Page 391. So the snake is coiling and it's trying to get tighter and tighter around America. And so what's going on here? There's some foreign power that took over the United States. Not just the courts. I was making mention of this in the ITNJ report, that there's been others reporting that the armed forces were taken over by a foreign power. This was, again, before Trump came into office. There's a lot of things that were outlined. So, going back to this mystery, the mystery was the absolutist Jesuit order in directing the holding of the court via Georgetown University was beginning to extend absolute powers to the Congress. In fact, though not in law, a parliament over the territories of the Pope's transitional de jure 14th Amendment new national republic created in 1868 on the ruins of old Calvinist de jure federal union Washington would later govern the states, as London her colonies, as Rome her provinces, thanks to Franklin Delano Roosevelt's Emergency War Powers Executive Order of March 6, 1933. And then you contrast the terms. You've got de facto, which means in fact, indeed, actually. This phrase is used to characterize a state of affairs which must be accepted for all practical purposes, but is illegal or illegitimate. In this sense, it is the contrary of de jure, which means rightful, legitimate, just, or constitutional. Black's Law Dictionary, 5th edition, page 375. And then de jure, descriptive of a condition in which there has been total compliance with all requirements of law, of right, legitimate, lawful, by right, and just title. In this sense, it is contrary to de facto. Black's Law Dictionary, 5th edition, page 382. We see that there are 2 systems running side by side. There's some that are more equal than others. And that's what we're finding out. And the question might arise, well, why would somebody leave language like this on page 4 of 4 to trap somebody? What kind of mind would put this paperwork together? What kind of mind would have us, by mistake or by omission, declare ourselves to be terrorists?
And most people, when they read that, if they read it, wouldn't know what it meant anyway.
Yes. They wouldn't know. What do you mean, line this out? What are you talking about? So the proportion which applies should be lined out. And that's the first thing they look for at the Department of State. So they asked me to go into a separate line where our talking could be more private. And they ask you to raise your right hand, affirm to tell the whole truth. And of course I do, and the whole 9 yards. And so we're going to go into a lot of detail into what one is to do when they get to that, and how to properly fill out the first page, how to line out page 4 of 4, and then page 2 of 2, what should be done there. We're going to go into great detail on that. For those who are listening to this, they can access this information. Of course, it's not offering legal advice. It's just sharing what I've done for myself for a donation of $177.60. And that link will be provided. It's $17.76, of course. I had to do something fun like that.
Now that was the question I was going to ask.
There you go. Yes, that was on purpose. So, okay. So now I know we're jumping all over the place, but here's one for you. If you look at the Dunn's number, let me just pull this one up. This is the Dun and Bradstreet number for the Embassy of the United States and where it was founded. 24 through 31 Grosvenor Square, London, Great Britain. Now look at this underneath here, which you'll be able to see. United States Army, 423 ABS Contracting Flight Building, 542 RAF, RAFALCONCURY, Huntingdon, Great Britain. United States Army, Coastal Forces, Shore Road, Southampton, Great Britain. This is on some security index key. This is information that I probably acquired in 2009, I think, during one of our conferences, but I couldn't find that readily accessible now. The stuff that used to be available on the internet is really hard to find now, for obvious reasons. So wouldn't you think that the United States, tied to England, the armed forces is under Great Britain? I mean, that says volumes. That says volumes. So people are going to be able to see that, and I highlighted that so they can. The other thing I want to review, the IRS is not a U.S. government agency. It is an agency of the IMF. And it gets into the Public Law 94 through 564, Senate Report 94, 1148, page 5967, and it goes on. The IMF is an agency of the UN, Black's Law Dictionary, 6th edition, page 816. The U.S. has not had a treasury since 1921, 14 Stat, chapter 214, page 654. By the way, I received this from a contractor with Department of Homeland Security. They didn't believe me when I was talking to them. And I said, hey, just check it out. If I'm wrong, I'll admit it, So this person hunted it down and said, wow, by golly, you're right about this. The United States does not have any employees because there is no longer a United States. Let's see here if this gives us anything. Executive Order 12803. Do not impersonate one of the creditors or shareholders or you will go to prison, 18 U.S. Code 914. All right, so I'm not exactly sure what that's referring to. This is after over 200 years of operating under bankruptcy, it's finally over. Okay, so I get it. Yeah, the 1933 stuff is very important to learn about that, the Emergency Banking Relief Act. That's again with the Trading with the Enemy Act that we talked about, 1917. Reorganized to the Emergency Banking Relief Act, which makes the enemies now from without the United States to within the United States. So the people inside the United States are deemed as enemies. Why? Because they were born and announced at birth by their mom as the informant. It says informant usually on those older birth certificates as basically property and chattel of the state. The state took all those birth certificates as property under the Emergency Banking Relief Act. And now, what's even more intense is when you look at Revelations, it says in the end times there will be the buying and the trading of souls. So when you look up the birth certificates and you actually go in and do a search on CUSIP Global Services, or if someone you know has access to Python, or you have a broker and they could go research it for you, I've actually done my own research and found out that your social security numbers, your birth certificates, all of that has a value, and you've been traded as surety for the national debt through your states, because the states are under the United States of America Incorporated. And when you look up your birth certificates, you'll find a CUSIP number. And that will show that your birth certificate is part of a fund. So in my case, it's the Fidelity Focused High Income Fund. It tells you the inception date of when the fund was created itself and the net assets. And there's a portion of those net assets that reflects how they value you. Now, this kind of points to the movie Jupiter Ascending is so accurate, it's disgusting. You can see that when Jupiter goes in to actually get her special status, and they call her Your Highness after she got the tattoo, but she had to go to the floor, and it says in the movie sub 33, before 1933. Then when she receives her access through the treasury there, they say, well, welcome Your Highness. And now she has what? She has the status going back to the original republic. Now, what's interesting is the House of Brassics wants to propose to marry her, and he said it's just for formality purposes. But if you look it up in demonology, that Brassics is an actual, real demonological lineage. They actually have a lineage. This is what they believe now. A lot of Christians may not believe this or see it, but I definitely do encourage the exploration of people like Tom Horn, L.A. Marzulli, Chris Putnam, who I believe was killed basically for what he's done with his work. And so, bottom line is, this points to the truth that there has been the buying and the trading of souls. And that 2/3 of the economy, 2/3 of it was run on human genetics. Again, this was before Trump came into office. And I keep going back to that. Why? Apparently that man is hated for a reason. And he knows about the Emergency Banking Relief Act. There's no way that someone would even file a document like that into their bankruptcy case because they go to jail. That's a federal offense. You can't be doing stuff like that. You can't just make up a document and put it in unless you want to go to jail. So that's a real document, and it was filed. So if Trump knows about this stuff, and now you've got people coming out of the woodwork, and the only reason I knew about that was somebody sent me the video. I think it was by this lady named Santa Surfing. She's awesome. She's a very cheerful lady. I like her. She's got a good sense of humor, very uplifting. But she just briefly put that document into the camera, and I was like, how am I going to find that? Because I couldn't see the case number. So when I looked it up, thank God I was able to download it, like I said, but I believe it's no longer accessible. So all of this to say is that, in fact, they have, by design, hybridized us. This is a plan. See, the demons, when they fell from heaven, 1/3 of the demons fell from heaven, and they lost their first estate. That's what it says in the scriptures. And the book of Enoch confirms all of this stuff. So when the demons fell, whether we believe it or not, they believe that the seed of Satan is in the line of the Illuminati. That's their belief. They believe in that. So I don't think Christians should take it lightly. In Genesis it says that the seed of the woman will crush the head of the serpent, and that this seed of the woman is Jesus, and the seed of Satan, they believe and characterize themselves as the illumined ones, as the sons of Satan. So this is a war. There's a war going on. And I'm saying all of this from firsthand personal experience. They wanted to hybridize us. Now, who are they? So Eric has dutifully tied together absolute evidence that the Jesuits took over this country in all of its facets, on every single level. And some people, even Brother Eric Phelps and my friend Chris Strunk, were picking on me, and we pick on each other. And so they were saying, Trump he's a Jesuit. I said, just because he went to Fordham, it doesn't mean he's a Jesuit. Trust me, there's no love affair going on. And if you look at the tweets, he pretty much puts them down and didn't spend a lot of time there. I basically encouraged Brother Eric. I said, sit down, go ahead, write a letter. And so he wrote a letter to Trump, and we shipped it off just to see if it would make it. And Brother Eric Phelps brought this problem forward. And prior to that, in 2015, I brought the matter of nanotechnology to the attention of Trump in a correspondence dealing with my case. And again, there's over 250 hours of interviews of myself with several others, but the International Tribunal for Natural Justice, that's the best one as far as evidence goes. I love the way that Keri Cassidy allowed me to share my story. I was able to put documents into the camera. VLTV is great too. So anyone who can access that, I think it's still up on YouTube, but basically, what their goal is the Jesuits take orders from the demons, the fallen demons, the fallen ones. And so what their goal is to do is to subjugate all free peoples of all nations. And there was a pattern, and I was able to illustrate that pattern about, what their plans were for genocide in this country, patterned after what they've already done in the Bolshevik Revolution, what they've done in the Serbian genocide, and so forth, Alperin versus Vatican Bank. So Their goal is to subjugate all of us. This whole thing about race and this one and that one, if you can just take out and just look at the matters logically without any emotion whatsoever, just look at things just plain and simple. We all need to take personal responsibility for what's going on, all of us. And when we do that, we're going to be given the insights as to how to fix this problem, because we're not going to be swayed by emotion to the left or to the right. There's no argument there. There's no argument there. It's only about pure truth. That's it. So, what do I know about truth as far as all this stuff goes? All I know is that I was one of the first people that was introduced to materials that were dangerous nanotechnology weapons. And these weapons were in my body. And I went through unbelievable torturous experiences for several years. All I know is that a letter went to Trump, and when he came into office, that suffering stopped. It doesn't mean these guys don't keep trying, specifically the Jesuits. Whoever this foreign invader is that came into this country, they're being found out right now. It's happening. So they wanted me to have this technology in my body, so eventually it would rewrite my code, my genetic code. They've actually talked about this. You've probably seen the Department of Defense. I think Bill Gates was in there, and the Pentagon, talking about removing the God gene from people's minds or brains, removing and eradicating. He called it religious extremism and things of that nature. These beings, these fallen beings, want us to be in their image and in their likeness.